I'm curious about your asylum proceedings because Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee, he said that you and the other people who had the warrants put out, that you should be treated, quote, like rats in the street.
Yes.
Now, it seems to me he's making a pretty good case for the U.S. granting you political asylum, but why is there a delay?
So actually, I have been waiting in the asylum process for about a year, but I know other people who have been waiting for 3 or even 4 years by now, since they started applying at the very beginning of the 2019 movement. And for a lot of us, it's been miserable and very anxious, but at the same time, it's kind of a taken that we have this understanding of the USCIS, of the immigration department being always very slow in their process because they have a huge backlog in the cases, that they have to process. So it always takes years before someone gets, any updates on their cases. And that has been frustrating. I mean, for a lot of us, we need to know that we can stay in a country for certain. Otherwise, we would always have this fear of, oh, what if I am deported back to Hong Kong? Then what would that mean for, a lot of us? And that's why for us, the Hong Kong Democracy Council and other Hong Kongers in the U.S. have been trying to advocate for immigration pathways, for humanitarian pathways, for Hong Kong protesters who have to flee from Hong Kong, and for political prisoners after they're released. And that's something we have been constantly trying to push forward. But we all know, it's a very complicated matter when we talk about, the border, immigration and refugee support. So that has obviously been a complicated discussions and also kind of a gridlock, to be honest. But we're still trying to push through.
Yeah, it's been kind of mind-boggling to me because I also recently was talking to a group of Uyghurs who were also in a similar situation where they were in this limbo of just waiting for asylum to be granted. And I know the U.S. can act quickly on this. Matt, correct me if I'm getting any of the details wrong, but after the Tiananmen Square massacre, there was a blanket asylum granted to people studying in the U.S.
It was basically Chinese students overseas. Including even Shelley's parents, who were they were here for just to study, and they were going to go back to China, and then the president was like, "Okay, you all get asylum," and they're like, "That's probably a good idea."
Yeah, so the U.S. can move very quickly on this. So
that was actually an executive order by the president.
Yeah, so actually right now, Hong Kongers get this protection called the Deferred Enforced Departure, the DED program. But then what it means is just that the U.S. government would not deport you, even if you overstayed your visa period. But it doesn't mean anything because we are not, given any immigration status. We don't have a legal status to really stay here.
So you can't get a job easily or rent an apartment, that kind of thing. And so you're kind of in this weird limbo where you're kind of a tourist, but you have no path to do anything else besides be in limbo.
So we do actually get the employment authorization where we are permitted to work. But at the same time, a lot of the employers would actually hesitate if they see that, oh, your DED period is only covered for 18 months. So what's going to happen later, right? I mean, I understand their concerns. So that's why we have been pressuring the Biden administration to actually upgrade that DED into, for example, a TPS, or even upgrade it to priority to refugee status so that Hong Kongers can actually come to the U.S. even if they don't have a visa before. So, I mean, Biden does have the executive power to do it. It's just an executive order that he has to sign. But Congress also has the power to make it into law. So we have been pressuring both sides, but both sides have been moving slow, and both sides have been, giving us a lot of reasons as to why this cannot be passed.
Yeah, this is something I've been very frustrated with recently, how the Biden administration, like the recent trip by Secretary of State Blinken and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to China, where Janet Yellen was actually bowing to her Chinese counterpart. It seems like the Biden administration hesitates to do anything that would really risk upsetting the Chinese Communist Party, like granting asylum to Hong Kong dissidents like yourself. Are you worried that, what the administration, and as you point out, Congress has a role in this too, that there is this current in U.S. society and U.S. politician in government to want to work something out with the Chinese Communist Party, to do some kind of appeasement, to normalize relations with China?
Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of anxiety recently in DC precisely because of this matter. I think after the spy balloon, we have seen a general backsliding from the Biden administration in the way it deals with the Chinese government. Now, while I understand that, there's a need for conversations to, happen between the two governments because nobody wants, a war to break out, right? But at the same time, we have been saying that if you do engage with them, raise the human rights issues, raise the genocide that's happening to millions of Uyghurs, raise the boarding school that's in Tibet that has been locking up students to, erase their culture, and raise the political prisoners in Hong Kong. Talk about these issues if you have to meet with the Chinese government, and actually leverage the kind of demands the Chinese government has on you, and ask them to fulfill, human rights requirements before you actually proceed with cooperating with them. So these are some demands that have been coming out, really strongly from the human rights circle in DC. But again, a lot of these have felt on deaf ears. We are not seeing very positive developments. And even actually this November, there's the APEC meeting, the Asia Pacific Economic Coordination meeting, that is going to happen in San Francisco. Because this year, U.S. is the host country, and the Hong Kong government is actually one of the member of APEC. And of course, the Hong Kong government has been saying that John Lee should be invited. John Lee, the chief executive of Hong Kong. But then he was sanctioned by the U.S. government in 2020 for all he did during the protests. And the government is still, the U.S. government is still considering inviting John Lee to set foot in America just for him to join the APEC meeting. For me, that's absurd and ridiculous because he has been sanctioned. And what sanctioning means is that he cannot set foot in the United States, right? So if you're going to grant a sanction waiver to someone like John Lee, I would imagine all the dictators, clapping their hands and, cheering each other in champagne when they hear the news, because it means that sanctions are useless. So that's something, the Bar John Lee campaign is something we have been working on as well. And it makes me even more furious to see that, now with the bounty on my head, the bounty actually given by John Lee, the Biden administration still hasn't come out to say anything about the APEC meeting. So we really need a very strong no to John Lee's potential entry into the U.S. to make me feel safe in this country.